Welcome back or to the Grey Couch, where we say that life is not black or white, but many shades of grey, and we get to explore those shades together. Today, me and Otito are having a conversation offline about being a better parent. My argument, and I'll take full responsibility, was that women make better parents than men. Hold up. I am Stanley.
And this is Otito.
There we go. Before you start responding, hear my argument out, right? So, like I was saying, hear my argument out. I was saying that, first off, you ladies have a head start, and pun intended, on us guys. The child has been in your womb for the last 9 months. When somebody says something interesting, oh, baby is kicking. People have that head start on us. You know, that's the first thing.
That's assuming that the child was not adopted. Yeah.
Like you have. I don't want to say you got me there. However, we're assuming that the child is not adopted for my argument's sake.
Okay.
Now, the next one, and this is a sensitive one for us guys, is that mother-baby bonding. And yes, I mean breastfeeding. Yeah, they say it's all the natural nutrients, essential nutrients. You know, in fact, after a while, you ladies are so bonded that you are sensitive to the child's non-verbal cues. So, the baby is crying. No, it needs a diaper change. And maybe the baby is hungry. And you guys cry sounded like it was the same. Sounded like. And then from the science point of view, the scientists tell us about oxytocin, the bonding hormone. How you ladies have a preponderance of that, and us men are deficient. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen my pattern here. You have a lot of things going for you on the biological sphere, and then let's even bring in the cultural and the societal, whereby people just generally assume that since mothers spend more time with the child, they are better caregivers. I'm not sure if the cat came before the horse in this stage.
I was just going to say that. This is what is called generalization, as you have seen, because you're probably thinking, this doesn't apply to everyone I know, but that's why it's a generalization. So, caveat there. Yeah. And
then my last point before I give Otito the mic, the virtual mic, and I guess I say this last because this is what I'm most sure about, is this thing about paternal leave and maternity leave. Forget that in the US where we are, this is all truncated, but the men's even shorter than the women, and the assumption is, the woman needs more time to form a bond with the baby.
Depends on your company, I think. Depends on where you work, which is another whole conversation about supporting parents,
I'll give that, but have you seen a place where a company where the man has more maternal leave than
No, but it's about the same, right? About 2 months in the US.
In the US.
Other countries, yes. Please, just don't mind us on our poor parental leave, policies. But, that's not the point here. I hear you. But then you know what I always say, that in spite of, the attachment theory where it's like, children are so, cute to their mother that if you leave, so they kind of start having issues. I don't necessarily think that is that's what determines parental success, like long term. Because yes, even if the mother left and came back, you can still override some of those things, with love and attention and care. And I also think that when you think about parenting, it's talking about nurturing and raising a child. So the term nurture is to tend, right? It's to take care. And so from that perspective, I feel like people can be, taught to nurture the child in terms of provision of the necessary physical, emotional, and spiritual, right? Care. Because I think most times people think of just nurture as the bond, but there are many ways to tend to children's needs. And I do think from the societal point of view too, all this pressure on the mothers is like, what about the dads? where in our own case, like I always say to the children, what's your dad? Because we'll be sitting here, they will come and say, Mom, 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 Mom. And I'm like, okay, if I had a penny for every time, you called me Mom, I'll be rich. I'll be so rich. And you can keep calling me Mom because my money will keep coming. But yeah, I mean, having said all of this back and forth, the truth of the matter is that no one was born a parent, right? When children come into your life, that is the point at which everyone becomes a parent. I do think, right? Now, some may argue, okay, it starts from the moment of conception, for which I would say two people came together to conceive the child. So the arguments there will be moot if we're even having an argument about it. But I'm saying, from the moment the child enters the world, whether it's through birth or through adoption or whatever, everyone starts learning how to be a parent. And so the question then is, why, in many cases, is it all left consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously or whatever we want to use here to one person? Right, so in that sense, you now have a person being both a mother and a father in terms of the children's needs, which to me violates biological laws, right? In that sense, like, you cannot be both, right? There's room for each party to do each person to do their own part.
Okay, I'm listening. I'm always trying to listen, right? And so my question is, okay, so what next? So what? If I can genderize this thing, if that's even a word, if it's not tied to gender, okay, so what are traits that everybody can bring to the table, in your opinion?
I mean, when it comes to children, patience is like number one. You have to be patient because children, in the field of work, drug metabolism and all of that, and the expression of the proteins that make things work in the body, it's a fundamental thing that we say that children are not young adults, right? They are children. And so that means that there's a maturity stage that has to be there. And this is just the thing with humans, right? We're the only ones that take that long to mature in utero many times, and then, inside the belly. And then after we come again, there's another even longer maturation stage. But I think as adults, we forget that children are really growing and they're not expected to know things, right? Especially if that child is very intelligent, then it becomes even harder because, like, with all your intelligence, how can't you know X and Y? Right?
When you're saying patience, I was even thinking in the line of Franklin, whether sometimes children
they'll make you lose your religion. They'll make you lose your religion.
That's the patience I was thinking about.
Yeah. And then consistency. I do think that, for at least in our own case, that's one of the harder ones, because children, they need boundaries, and what boundaries do is help bring consistency to say, at this time every morning we'll go to school, right? But if today there's no school, tomorrow there's school, this, that, the child starts to kind of wonder, like, what is going on, right? So that brings a sense of insecurity, I would say. And so the consistency and the boundary setting are together. You can't really separate them one from each other, because it's basically saying this square is where we're going to be at this time and at that time, things like that. And then I think the last part will be being intentional, right? So it's a question of what kind of parent do I want to be in order to help this child become, right, this thing. I would say this many qualities. But that is not to say that it's now everything we do that determines the child. No. But you cannot now say, the child will turn out how they're going to turn out no matter what I do. It's, what we call feedback mechanism, in many cases. And we know too, as people of faith, that we know if you train up a child, even when they're old, they will not forget, right? They won't depart from it. And so there's that part of playing your part and then watching it come to fruition.
Yeah, all these things kind of dovetail together. I remember child 2 started reading at 2 or 3, and couldn't believe it. I mean, we thought maybe it was memorizing the words, but
Picked up
you
a
just
book
picked
and
up.
started reading.
But not just pick up, but you would read to them at bedtime, and there was always a book around. In fact, if you turn the camera around, you're gonna see books everywhere. So just that bit about intentionality, you know, I think that's a harder thing for me to do, in that I just want the outcome. I'm not really thinking about the processes to get there, you know. Same child too. In fact, just the other day, he asked me just out of the blue, "Dad, what's a gulag?" And I'm like, from where? And I said, I think it's a prison, it's a type of prison. And the dude now went to go check, you know, and sure, thankfully, I should have got that one right. He said it's like a Russian prison. And he said, Dad, that reading books just lets you learn a lot of words. These were his words, not mine. And I could just see, you know, still intentionality all the way looping through. Now, this is something he enjoys doing, so I guess that might be something else to throw in there. That it has to be something that they enjoy doing, so that they're not forcing them all the time. But that exposure is important. Like, you can't get exposure without the intentionality.
It's taking them for experiences, right? Educational experiences, or making an education out of, you know, every experience. Now, this is where I would say probably I do have a little bit of an advantage or an edge, because I'm an educator, right? I'm a teacher. So from that perspective, you might say, oh, I'm already attuned to turning everything into an educational experience, which the older child no longer, you know, enjoys. No longer enjoys. Like, Mom, you don't have to turn everything into a teaching moment. But so I said, because you've learned all the things now, you are now forming. Forming is like, you know, you're being proud for the younger child, right? But that's the point. Like, I do know, but in spite of that, you have to be intentional about it, because I didn't just wake up and say I'm going to. I didn't just wake up and then that happened. It's like saying, okay, you know, I want the children to be able to have an expanded vocabulary, right, and things like that. Now, someone might say, oh, what's the point? It doesn't matter what it is. In my own case, it's, you know, the conversations and the vocabulary. For some other people, it may be piano, it may be something, but something where you're kind of, I would say, you know, helping the child develop whatever skills and talents and, you know, gifts that they have, because you can see it really early sometimes with some of these things. Some others you tease out with time, but for some you see early. So yeah.
So what next? If I'm following the thread, it's that both parents bring different strengths.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not necessarily so much about gender, but maybe more about personality. But there are three things that I'd just like to share that have been helpful to us. And she kind of alluded to it. I've been having consistent boundaries, but with natural consequences. And if this happens, this is what's going to happen.
If then. It's called if then.
If then. You've heard it from the prof now. Consistent boundaries with natural consequences. Now, another one she also alluded to is creating intentional opportunities for growth out of every episode, where at first I would want to explore that, this has gone on, so that, no, what can we piece together here? What were you thinking? What was going on? And then, and even from early age, I mean, sometimes we're like, we want to wait for them to become accountable, or twins or teenagers. Less of the baby conversations and more of just real interaction back and forth. And then the last one is like some time for reflective conversations, and not necessarily always lecturing, because after a while, at least for me, telling them what to do now, they're expecting that from you, but okay, what were you exactly thinking about this, and what are we going to do? You know, I think I'm starting to enjoy those more now, because it's like the child figures it out for himself halfway through his conversation, like, well, you know what, okay, you know, and those lessons stick more, you know.
I mean, the telling what to do is important.
Yes, that's true.
Because that's part of the boundaries, and hopefully you get to a point where then they do what you've been saying of their own accord. Because I think the other day I came in and child one picks up the broom and is like, Mom, before you even say anything, I need to sweep because I know this place is dirty, so let me sweep it so you don't have to say anything. I'm like, praise Jesus. Oh my goodness. So yeah.
Well,
that was a parenting win.
Well, that's what we have for you for this week. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if this has added some value to you. We're in the month of March, and somebody's book is coming out soon. Keep watching this spot. And don't forget, in June we're going to have our first couples retreat. More information about that here. Well, thanks for tuning in from our couch to yours. Bye for now, and we'll see you guys soon.